Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you have read about Maya Angelou and how her life events led to her writing the poem I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. To begin, let us read the first stanza. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. The first stanza begins with the spirit of freedom and joy. The opening lines describe the liberty of a free bird that can move anywhere it wants with no restrictions. It flies from one place to another in the sky that seems to belong to it. The free bird is suggestive of a white American who has the liberty to go and do anything he wants. The free bird leaps on the back of the wind, meaning it flies and sways with the wind towards the mouth of the stream or the river. It flies in the evenings against the orange sky when the sun sets. The bird flies in such a way that it regards the whole sky as his own and claims its freedom where there is no restriction. Every movement of the free bird becomes blissful and joyous. The second stanza. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. In the second stanza, the poet brings in sharp contrast in the condition of the encaged bird. The poet uses the word stalk to describe how the caged bird looks through its cage to intensify the sense of fear that arises from leading a restricted life. He can barely walk in his cage while the free bird flies in the open skies. The caged bird can barely see the world beyond what is visible through the bars of the cage, which makes him angry and frustrated, and thus it becomes the bars of rage. The wings of the caged bird have been clipped while his feet have been tied, and so the only thing that the bird can do is just to open his throat and to sing. He uses his lone ability, which is left with him, which is to sing. In other words, a person who feels restricted due to any form of discrimination, prejudice, and cannot enjoy freedom, he can only yearn for freedom, just like the African Americans wanted freedom. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. In the third stanza, the poet continues to tell us about the caged bird, that it sings in a fearful tone, makes us realize that the bird is unhappy and he gives a desperate cry for freedom. He sings about unknown things that exist outside his cage, and he strongly desires to know everything that is beyond his cage. The bird's song is heard far away on the hills as he sings about his longing for freedom. He does not know what freedom feels like, but still there is a part of him that eagerly wants to break free from the shackled existence. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. In this stanza, the poet talks about the free bird again. He says that the free bird recalls another breeze he has experienced that has helped him to fly freely through the air. The breeze and the trade winds go past the trees, which appear to be sighing. The free bird likes to take control of the sky, and he thinks about the fat worms waiting on the lawns for him to feed on. The bird seems to name the whole sky its own as it experiences the utmost freedom to rule the sky and go anywhere it wants. The breeze, the fat worms in this stanza are metaphors to represent hope and opportunity, which free people have, which the free bird had, and the caged bird did not. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The fifth stanza returns to the image of the caged bird once again. These lines point out such a vivid image of dreams that cannot be fulfilled. He stands on a grave where his dreams are buried. The bird, which is trapped behind the bars of his cage, is forced to bury whatever dreams it has beneath its feet. He exists in a dark and confined space where there is no scope to dream. The shadow of the bird utters a shrill, nightmarish cry. It screams standing on the grave of its dreams. Instead of happy and positive dreams, the caged bird just has nightmares. The poet then goes on to remind us that the bird's wings are clipped and its feet are tied. Though he has nothing left physically, he still has his voice. Therefore, he does the only thing that he could do, that is, to sing from his throat as loud as possible. By repeating the last two lines, the poet reaffirms the idea that the caged bird desires for freedom, which it is unable to get. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The last stanza is a repetition of the third stanza. The poet repeats it because she wants to emphasize on this part of the poem. Even though the bird has been caged and his happiness has been taken away, the caged bird still has hope that one day he will be like the other birds, flying in the sky, having the freedom and happiness. The poet wanted to portray that one day everyone will have the same rights and equality. She emphasizes that the caged bird sings for freedom, which she hopes that she will get, just like the poet, just like the caged bird, the poet too dreams of her freedom. Having seen the differences between the caged bird and the free bird, the poet points out the theme of this poem, that is freedom and oppression, which is predominant. The image of the free bird living a life of unparalleled joy and liberty stands for freedom, while enslavement in the poem is symbolized by the restricted life of the caged bird, whose wings are clipped and the feet are tied. The free bird lives its own life with no boundaries and control. However, the caged bird lives an imprisoned life in a narrow cage. The caged bird can hardly get a glimpse of the sky and cannot move freely as its wings have been clipped. It only longs for freedom in its sad songs. The conditions of the free bird and the caged bird aptly represent the social disparity between the whites and the African Americans during the civil rights era. The restricted life of the caged bird stands for the inequality, injustice, and discrimination that the African Americans had to face during that period. They voice their protest in the form of the song sung by the caged bird. Its song is heard on the distant hill, so the poet is hopeful that the voice of the caged bird has begun to be heard far away and can no longer be suppressed. I hope that everyone has understood and got the gist of the poem. Assignment 2 is an extract of a stanza from the poem, followed by the questions with reference to the context. This particular extract came in our 2019 board paper, and I would appreciate it if everyone goes through and does these questions.